Good evening, everybody. Welcome to BS session 43. Chris didn't write anything here, so I got nothing to read, and I'm pretty fucking useless. So thanks for coming. Enjoy the show.
Because I have a shotgun and rifle that I use for, and 22 gauge that I use for ptarmigan, moose, and black bear.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
You're listening to your weekly dose of BS, Ballistically Speaking. The Ballistically Speaking Podcast.
How creative was that, hey?
That's so creative.
I had nothing. I was driving a semi all damn day today. My creativity is dead.
Well, I was on your property shooting guns all day, so
right.
I guess one of us had a better day than the other one, didn't they?
You know what? I spent good quality time with my father for like 9 hours. I'm good.
Okay, yeah, your day was fine.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, like Rooster said, welcome to BS Session 43. We've got Daniel Fritter here from Calibre Magazine. If you don't know what Calibre Magazine is yet, I don't know. You're just not Canadian at this point, I think.
I think not.
How you doing, Daniel?
Good. Tired and good.
Good and tired and good. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Doesn't that mean
summary.
you're trying?
Pretty much, yeah. It's between everything's getting busy with the other company because it's kind of seasonal and spring. Nice cars and motorcycles are coming out, so that's like slammed. And then obviously this is going on, so I was trying to listen into the C-21 stuff from underneath a 65 Shelby Cobra. But the machine that we run is much louder than my headphones, so there was 0% chance I could hear anything.
Oh, you're kidding.
But you
Yeah, I
could
couldn't.
pretend.
It's like it's basically 110 CFM of air coming out of a few millimeter opening, and it's mixed in with 3 pounds of dry ice per minute. So it's like a jet engine and a sandblaster mixed together.
Hold on. What were you doing? I don't know anything about mechanics. So what were you doing? What does that do to a Shelby Cobra?
It's like sandblasting, except instead of sand, you use little tiny particles of dry ice, and
Really?
the dry ice is very soft, quite literally. So little tiny. It's called rice because when you get a 500-pound boxes, and it looks like dry ice rice. You shove it into the machine shoots it out, and instead of like abrading things away like sandblasting does, it freezes them and then it falls off. So like undercoating, for example, like asphalt and tarry undercoating on a car, you shoot the gun at it and you see the edges curl up because it's freezing and coming off. And then because there's a bunch of air behind the blasting media as well, the air just tends to unhook it and comes off. So we take undercoatings off cars. It's primarily used for classic cars and new like collector cars where they just want to keep them in like mint shape, because like I'll send a photo around later, but like I did my bike yesterday because it was just at the end of the day I was like, I can clean this up really nicely with this. It took like 20 minutes, and it took a 2005 Honda and made it look brand new. Like no joke, like when I say brand new, I don't mean like pretty clean. I mean like there is no visible dirt anywhere. The zinc plating comes
Really?
up like it was done yesterday. The stainless hardware comes up like, yes, everything is perfect. Yeah, it's
Wow.
the old cars are cool because it does some stuff that like nothing else can do. Like with this Cobra, it had a Jaguar rear end. It's very complicated independent rear suspension. So like cleaning that by hand, it's a nightmare. But you don't have to take anything apart with this. You leave all the parts intact and you just clean it. But like it leaves a different finish on old cars because they tend to have more rust and corrosion and stuff underneath. So you're kind of like you're cleaning stuff off to find rust, whereas like doing anything from 2000 and newer, it's like it just comes up like it was made yesterday. It's like, oh, this is so satisfying.
That's weird. That's like who was sitting around thinking, hey, what if I shoot some like really cold dry ice at this thing and just see what happens?
The weirdest thing is, so of all the companies that are making the machines, the ones that are very popular called Cold Jet, them out of the States, are what I use. They're kind of like the Apple of this stuff. And we're so far into the weeds here. It's like 10 minutes in, not
And
even
what-
like 10 seconds in.
And one
There's
AB's
another-
like chomping at the bit to get into the
Right.
rest of this stuff. That's okay. He's got to wait. Carry on.
Another company that's actually kind of trying to get into it is what's their name? They're in BC and they operated the Martin Mars water bombers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're an aviation company, and he just started a second company to try and build these dry ice blasting machines. So I'm kind of anxious. I'm going to try and get down to the island, actually, like test drive one, basically, as it were. See if we can expand that way. But I'm a big plane buff, so for me, it's kind of cool that there's that tie-in. But yeah, that's we started that up, I guess, a year ago because, as I've talked about on videos and stuff, like the gun industry is not exactly a fun place to be these days, and paper prices went up 44%. So like our financial future, we were looking at going, like, if paper prices continue to rise and the gun industry does not recover, there was only one way that ended. Thankfully, that doesn't look like it's the way it's going. But good to diversify a bit, especially since this is kind of my family's mortgage, right? Like there is no plan. Well, now there's a plan B, but there was no plan B before this. So
you need to insulate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember we had you on the show when it was first welcome a couple of years ago, and you were talking about getting back. I think at the time you were talking about bikes specifically.
Yeah.
Chris,
it's been nice
you're
to
sort of interrupt, guys, but Chris, you're kind of muffled, like you're kind of cutting out a little bit. Is that mic a long ways from your face, or
it's not? But I might be
better now.
It might be my internet connection. Carry on, answer the question, Daniel, and I'm going to just fuck with my mic.
Guys.
Oh, what was the question? I forgot now.
Oh, I guess it wasn't really a question. I had just made an observation about you were talking about it a couple of years ago, and you were going to say something.
Yeah. We were talking about like it's been a while, and now it's finally. I guess the big change was we were operating it on a mobile basis, which limits what you can do to usually like a lot of equipment, commercial kitchens. Like it was for those who. No one else was in the pre-show, but I have to go out and do a job at like 1 a.m. to go to a kitchen because that's when kitchens close. So it's kind of, but we do a lot of that stuff. But now with the shop open, with the hoist and everything else, it's really opened up a lot more. And now that the weather's finally good and people are getting their nice things out on the road again, because it was a long winter here in Kelowna. It felt like, anyways.
Yeah. Am I sounding any better, Rooster?
Yeah, you are for now. Yeah.
Okay,
sure. I don't know why you were sounding perfect before, and then it just garbled up a little bit.
I might have had a internet blip. I've realized over the last little while that my router
don't have good internet there. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My router is ancient, and I need a new one, and I've ordered it, but it hasn't arrived yet. That's why I've been having trouble for about the last 8 months.
No sense rushing into things.
Yeah, I'm getting about 1/6 of the speed that I'm paying for with my ISP because my router can't handle anymore. It's a 10100 router. It's not even a gigabit router.
Yeah, because that means everything to me.
Well, it means something to Daniel, and that's what.
Yeah, that just means that's old.
Yeah, it means that it's old.
I lucked out in that the fiber optic connection for our house comes in directly above my office, pretty much.
Oh, really?
And it's just run an Ethernet cable down through the floor, and that's been plugging my computer into the internet with an actual cable.
Yeah.
So choice.
Well, that's in my near future because the old router doesn't have enough spots for me to run a cable down to where I do the show, so I have to do it on Wi-Fi. The new router will have enough that I can run a cable down to it. So.
Oh, you'll love it.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that I will. Yeah.
You can't even hook a cable up to my new laptop. It's just like, no, we're not doing this shit anymore.
No, you have to get a USB Ethernet adapter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to also.
It's like my phone. Like, I know everyone bitches about this nonstop. Like, I had a set of headphones that were so good for riding motorcycles. They fit under a helmet and everything. Because the second you get Wi-Fi headphones, they're too big. Like, there's no room in a helmet. And like, I could buy a stupid USB adapter. Now I got to carry fucking adapters to plugs to. I just use my old phone.
Finally, after about when did USB-C started hitting the market? What, about 7 or 8 years ago now?
Yeah, I think so.
Christ, has it been that long?
Well, you know that Apple is finally with the next iPhone supposed to be using a USB-C plug instead of FireWire.
And if I used Apple, perhaps I'd care, but
well, I don't use Apple either. But
I'm so deep into the Android world, man.
Yeah,
Android and PC.
100%. Yeah. Console gaming is for chumps. Yeah, let's move it on.
Okay, let's take care of some of the business end of things before we get deep into the other business end of things, I suppose.
The chicken is done, by the way.
Oh, that was
Excellent.
some watching here going off. I have a slight addiction to Casio G-Shocks, and because they are
Okay.
not terribly expensive watches, I have a lot of them. My son presses buttons on them, and now they just do things. So that's
Okay.
my life.
That's fair. I just figured it was time to turn the chicken over.
All
Carry on,
right,
Rooster.
everybody. Tonight, our featured sponsors are Ribstone Gunsmithing, from stock refinishing and modifications to general repairs and rust bluing on rifles, shotguns, and pistols. Contact Oscar Long at ribstonegunsmithing.ca in Czar, Alberta. Ribstone Gunsmithing, craftsmanship done right.
And also the Shooting Edge in Calgary, Alberta, with premier indoor shooting ranges, retail sporting goods, firearms education and training, upscale country clothing, boots and accessories, fine British shotguns and rifles, and state-of-the-art laser engraving and custom coatings. The Shooting Edge in Calgary, Alberta is your Canadian shooting sports happy place. Find The Shooting Edge on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and Twitter, and on their website at theshootingedge.com. Basically, they're everything and everywhere.
You think the Shooting Edge does too much?
Well, I don't think they do too much. I think they do just enough.
Also joining us, as always, EM Precision Rifles in Leduc, Alberta, building Canada's finest precision rifles. Commission a build today at emprifles.ca. It is.
And speaking of that, inside of my EM Precision Rifles cup is Bolt Action Coffee, bringing specialty coffee to the precision shooting world. Order coffee and merchandise at boltactioncoffee.com.
Left my EM Precision coffee mug in the Sammy today, so I can't display it.
Despicable.
I know, isn't it? Well, you know what? Put it on the list. It's not all I'm known for.
Okay, that's fair.
Call sign 66. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Book a course with these guys now at callsign66.ca. Keep your ears peeled for updates on courses this year. As we've been saying for the last couple of shows, I think they've got a property down in southern Alberta that they can get out to 4 kilometers. And what do I want to say, Chris? A fully... It's like a goddamn resort down there.
That's the idea. Yeah, you can do courses and get like the resort rustic experience at the same time, which is kind of cool. Yeah,
Doing some premium beef and stuff like that. I think.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm
really
gonna say
know.
it's gonna happen. Yeah.
No, we're gonna do it. I've been talking to a couple of people, and we're gonna do a course and do the resort thing. I just don't know if it's gonna be this year or next year. But anyway, also Odell Engineering. Odell. Pick up a Canuck shotgun or a Bergara rifle from your local distributor and tell them Phil sent you. I was just shooting the Daria TM22 and the Bergara BMR today. They're fun. Look them up at OdellEngineeringLTD.com.
And Apex Optics. When you buy Apex, precision comes standard. Find them at apexoptics.co. And grab yourself a Rival 4-32 rifle scope and get on the mailing list for more exciting products coming soon, as now they are out with several more products. Check them out.
I'm pretty sure the LPVO and the Hunter are, the Edge and the Hunter are going to be coming pretty darn quickly here. Yeah, excellent. But I don't know for sure. You poor guy, you really did like fuck up your face working today. Hey, Daniel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you just get so much stuff covering your face, then you wash it, and my face always just turns bright red. Always has. And that doesn't help that I've got allergies like you wouldn't freaking believe today. Oh, no. It's like all of the pollen came out.
How fortunate for you.
Fortunate for you. So Doug
Come
Ruddenbush,
show your face on our podcast today. We'll help you out. Yeah.
Doug says that I'm lying, that there's no coffee in my mug. There is actually coffee in my mug. I brewed this in a French press. This is Bolt Action Coffee suppressed. I decided that I was going to represent tonight. And it's supposed to be decaf.
Look at you. Excellent.
I don't know how to prove it. It's really good. I have it just with a dollop of Big Island Bees honey. It's from Hawaii. Every time we go to Hawaii, we bring back a couple of jars of Big Island Bees honey. It's exclusively bees that make honey exclusively from the Lahua? I don't know, some Hawaiian flower. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I think 1AB is probably shaking right now because we're not already talking about this stuff. Yeah. So why don't we get into this?
Flowers and bees and stuff. That's great.
Yeah,
look at even Daniel's leaving.
He's like, fuck
had
this.
Had to close the blinds. The light at sunset comes down and it's just going to be like glaring, blinding, brutal. So I got to join you guys in the basement look.
Love it. So here's the first question from 1AB. Did we watch the CSAAA roundtable? Did you watch it, Daniel?
I did, yeah.
Did you watch it, Kurt?
I didn't, I have it queued up, but I just, this week's been it's total farming this week. So I haven't stuck my face in it just yet.
Okay. I
imagine it was interesting.
I thought it was interesting. What did you think of it, Daniel?
I was going to write a story about the whole thing. Like that morning, I asked the CSAAA for comment, like formal comment.
Yeah. Well, I guess, wait a minute. I asked if you watched it. You were there.
Yeah, I spoke at the meeting. I have, not that I have to be careful, but I'm conscious of the fact that I'm not a member of that organization. So whenever I spoke up, and I haven't really taken, it's partly why I haven't been involved with them at all, really, is like, I've not my circus, not my monkeys kind of thing. I thought it was interesting. There was some very interesting things said during it. I was really dismayed at the lack of prep work that's been done. Because for those that don't watch it, we talked about a bunch of stuff, and the CSAAA contract that they signed, and the two biggest problems, I guess, because there's a lot to unpack here, but the one big problem, there didn't seem to be a lot of transparency around the price tag, and the price tag also, there wasn't a lot of transparency about that. And I think fundamentally the CSAAA is an organization that in the past years, and again, I'm not a member, but knowing how many members roughly they have, has typically probably not exceeded $250,000 in funding in any year that it's ever existed when it's been funded by the Canadian gun industry. So when you take an organization that maybe struggles to get $200,000 together, and you say, well, we're going to pay you $707,000, you fundamentally change who you work for.
Yeah,
like
100%.
You're not an industry organization liaising with government. You're a government organization liaising with industry at that point. And although I don't think there's anything technically wrong with this in terms of like Societies Acts and all this sort of stuff, like technical legal stuff, like you have a responsibility to your membership, because to be quite honest, the CSAAA has every right to become a government-run industry liaison organization funded by the government, because they're a private entity. You don't have the right to tell them what to do.
Yeah, just as well as any other business, yeah.
But they owed it to their members to ask them first, because from a marketing perspective,
this is where I get hung up. Yeah,
this is going to hurt a lot of businesses that don't necessarily, like, we saw some of the directors resigning because like they were getting death threats to their stores and stuff because people were getting so angry about it. And like, so the 707 is a big problem. The biggest issue, some fundamental ones, like there's no logical way you can say, well, we needed to work with the government because we were worried that if we didn't work with the government, they'd work with someone else, and that someone else would be worse than us. You want them to work with someone worse than you. You want them to work with the worst possible partner they can find.
Right.
Right.
Well, and they found, IBM, and IBM is not a weak logistical company, and they couldn't seem to find a way to get it done. So I'm not sure that really holds water, that if it wasn't us, it was going to be somebody else. It already was somebody else, and they shit the bed.
Where did that go? Did IBM sign on to that, or was that just a proposal?
So IBM,
it just kind of disappeared.
What IBM agreed to do was actually just come up with the proposal for the buyback. It wasn't, they were never going to be the ones to complete it. And their proposal for the buyback did, from all the documentation, appear to be a mail-in system that, to be quite honest, would have worked. Like, just straight up, it was pretty well thought out. But like, I don't know where IBM went off to. There's been a bunch of money paid since, and I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but I was digging into the numbers on the budgets and stuff. Charity? No, it was an ATIP I filed. It was
Oh
the
no, I
funding.
mean, was all that money, was it paid to We Charity?
No. This is where, like, literally, this is an actual scandal, I think, that might be brewing, but I
Oh, you're
can't figure out how
kidding.
to get. No. What?
I was just making jokes. You're serious. Like,
I'm
it
dead
might
serious.
actually be a thing.
Yeah, no. So the office for the buyback, the commission, whatever I can't remember, secretariat or whatever for buyback. It's literally an office in Ottawa that has a budget. In previous years, the budget was blank, right? Long story short, and again, you know the figures here, but like last year, the budget shifted dramatically, and they stopped having like they paid like $600,000 to consultants last year in this single office with
Wow.
like that has like 3 employees. Like this is a tiny ass, like it shows the full-time equivalencies and everything, and like there's a massive uptick, and it happened around the same time as everyone started noticing the what's that massive consulting firm in Ottawa that everyone's like saying the Liberals are he's buddy with, that is Dominic Barton works at or whatever. But I'm trying to figure out where the consultancies were paid to.
Okay.
Like what companies were being paid by this buyback and for what. And the problem is it's hard to connect those things because it's
Weird.
a lot of documents. But trying to dig into it. But yeah, I think that's an actual, like, I do feel like this is one of those few times, like one of the very few times that I find a news item in the gun file that I'm like, oh, this could be in like real newspapers. And a real newspaper could be like, this dumbass gun magazine came up with this story and dug into it. And wow, look at that. It'd be really cool. But yeah, I'm digging into it.
That's interesting. I was just trying to make stupid like Kielburger jokes, and
No,
and
it's
hear
actually
that
like
might be a real deal.
yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Like it's all this gun stuff. And that's the other thing I'm trying to chase down is where this money is going that they keep saying they're giving to provinces. Like when Marco Mendocino walks into some province and says, you know, we're going to give $350 million for public safety. Like I dug into one, and for example, it was in BC, and it directly funded an at-risk youth program for Sikh kids, not sick kids, Sikh kids.
Was that a misspelling, or is it meant to be Sikh?
No, it's meant to be Sikh. It's a Sikh cultural organization that operates a specific program for at-risk youths in Abbotsford. And I kind of went like, how many kids are enrolled in this program? Like, seriously. Like,
Yeah.
Abbotsford's a farming community. Like, yeah, it's got some violence and whatnot, but like, is Abbotsford a hotbed of gang violence? Amongst the Sikh community? I don't know.
I was just
But
going to
also,
say, is
too-
there a big gang uptick in the Sikh community, period? Because they're not exactly known for having like prolific gangs in Canada.
No, well,
There's a
Not
fairly
really.
large Sikh community there, though, isn't there? And
oh yeah, there is. Yeah, Abbotsford is
Sure.
a huge Sikh community.
Sure, but that
But
doesn't
what's-
necessarily
That's about
mean
the
gang
only
problem.
correlation.
Yeah.
What's really weird though is when I was digging into it, the organization, like if you imagine, and I can't remember their names, but if you imagine like the YMCA, right? So they have their own website, and it's the organization, it's this Sikh cultural organization, and then you can click on this anti-violence program, and it takes you to basically what looks to be an almost entirely separate page, and they've got a separate board. And it gets really hard to see what they do, but it gets really easy to identify the people involved. And that's the kind of thing that I'm always a little bit like, because truly good outreach organizations, you rarely actually see the volunteers because volunteers are doing it for altruistic reasons of helping people. When you can surf an entire website that's been funded by the federal government for hundreds of thousands of dollars and go, what do you do? How do I get in? How would I even contact you? Where's your intake? How can a kid that sees this website get a hold of you? No, instead it's here's our board of directors because it looks like resume
Sure.
padding. And it looks
It's window
like
dressing.
honestly to me it just looks like, and this is totally the conspiracy theorist side of me, but like I'm honestly getting a little bit skeptical that these aren't basically the members of the Liberal Party Abbotsford Riding Association taking funding to start up an organization. And now, well, we've got a $300,000 program, and sure, we had 2 kids go through it, but we had to buy new cars because we had to transport the kids in the cars. And it just
It's
so happens
called
that we all just rolled.
laundering, Daniel.
That's sort of what it feels like. I didn't want to say it because I
Fucking
try
right.
not to be too.
That's
know,
all
but-
right. I'll say it for you.
I'm going to dig into those because there's all of those provincial. What's interesting is on this particular file, the government rarely makes a mistake because there's no transparency. Anything around guns, it's siloed up in the RCMP and public safety. So it's just like, and anything they can, they just say Privy Council confidence. Everyone just goes, okay, sure, because it's guns. But the problem with the funding is the funding went into the provinces. And like the provinces have those documents of where that money went. The money was given to BC and then BC dispersed it. So where that money went in BC I will be told that by the province of BC's government, who is significantly more transparent. All of the provincial governments are significantly more transparent than the federal government.
Yeah.
So,
but you'll still get the "we'll get back to you."
oh, for sure. And then I'll have to find someone and call them and hassle them and stuff.
But you'd think if
Navigate
there
our
was
website,
something,
please.
you'd think if there was something hinky going on, that at least Alberta and Saskatchewan might, speak up. Wouldn't you think?
Depends on how much money they've gotten, because if I have noticed that like liberal areas tend to get a little bit more money. Like the Atlantic provinces were just like getting showered in cash there last fall. And they don't have a lot of people. So there's a bit of a like, this is a lot of money for tiny populations. So that was kind of interesting. And I wonder how much money Alberta's got. And then of course, like if you're giving money to Alberta and you're going to do hinky stuff with it, you just don't give Alberta as much money and you don't tell them what to do with it. You just say, actually go solve crime with this. Look at us. We're doing the right thing. But then everywhere else you can say, hey, okay, we're going to give you this money, but these specific organizations you have to approach is how I expect that one down. Not and it's such a thing for this government and their mindset that like, that's what they're going to do with C-42. They're going to go to the CFAC and they're going to say, these 426 guns,
clearly,
look at these at the exclusion of all else.
Yeah.
Forget about the rest of them. Yeah.
Well, with the parameters that they'd be given, it's a foregone conclusion that that's what they'd be going after. I mean, I don't understand. So we're coming off of CSAAA for a little bit, and I want to go back to it eventually, but I don't understand how. Well, I do understand, but I mean, publicly, I don't understand how the NDP agreed so vehemently that the last set of amendments was a violation of the treaty rights for hunting. But this current amendments that are in front of C-21.
It's now the answer.
Well, yeah, no, I'm listening to this interview because the NDP MP in Nunavut is getting all this attention because they're an Indigenous MP, and she's on this is on APTN, by the way, like the Aboriginal People's Television Network news. And she's telling them, well, this doesn't look that bad right now. We're going to take a look and see approach to this, and right now we're going to support it. And I'm like, how can you lie like that? Like either you're just really clueless, in which case you're doing your constituents an extreme disservice, or you are flat out lying because you've been whipped in this vote.
So I completely agree. I was pretty surprised by Alistair McGregor. I'm not really surprised with the NDP at large because, whatever. But I was surprised by Alistair because that speech he gave was so good, and it appears he's changed his mind. And that's disappointing, but like I've said, you're allowed to do that. But I think the thing that gun owners need to realize is the NDP is responding to the exact same thing in a very different manner. So there's probably something we don't know.
Yeah.
That'd be what I'd say. Is there something that we're not being told that the NDP was told?
Yeah.
Like, support this because it's going to become one of the key parts of our election in the fall.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll make you irrelevant, as Mike Hynek is saying here.
I don't know how the NDP could find their way to relevance
That's
right now.
That's a good question right now.
That's, yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
One of the great
voter
mysteries
question.
of the
If you want to say the voter question, like if someone's walking into the ballot box, what's the question that they answer that makes them put down NDP? Like, unless they're, I have no dental coverage and I have kids. That's the one, like that one specific subset of people. But short of that, I honestly,
either that or I
else,
want to surf all day or hang out all day and work my way towards a guaranteed income. And
but then you can
pot's
vote liberal.
legal.
Like you could literally
right
just
now
vote
you
liberal and
could
get the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I don't think they're. I think and I mean, this is where I have to be cautious that I'm probably speaking from an echo chamber and with some significant bias, but like, I think this issue is grossly undersold on the NDP from a strategy perspective, like purely from a political strategy. This would clearly define them back as a blue collar party. It would allow them to kind of play both sides of the fence, you know, because they could play the Jagmeet Singh urban NDP all they want, but then on this they could defend their rural base. Say nope, you know what? A lot of the union guys, I mean, Jesus Christ. You think that the communists didn't want guns?
So
like,
far away from
Yeah. But you know what? Jack Layton's socialism is truly dead. Like that party is, that party died with Jack Layton.
yeah, I think so.
It is a completely different party now.
it sure is. Yeah.
You know, in a lot of ways, except for the authoritarianism, the Liberal Party resembles Jack Layton's NDP more than Jagmeet Singh's NDP ever will. I think that Jagmeet Singh's NDP has leapfrogged the Green Party in terms of leftist
I think
socialism.
you're probably right. Yeah.
How about the weirdest thing I'd say is, in some ways, like Jack Layton, Justin Trudeau, and Pierre Poilievre have been the three most personable, charismatic
Jagmeet
prime
Singh,
ministers. No. Pierre Poilievre, literally, I'd say Pierre Poilievre, Justin Trudeau, and Jack Layton have been the three most charismatic politicians the leaders in my lifetime. And I think like that gives me a lot of hope because like, I mean, Jack Layton brought the NDP into official opposition territory. And like Justin Trudeau delivered a huge majority with 2 million more votes in 2015. And the last time I saw any level of excitement that matched that was when Pierre Poilievre came to town. I couldn't get to his rally because I left on time to get there because they had it out in the farm area in Kelowna for some stupid reason. And like I got stuck 3 blocks away because the traffic to get in, the parking lot filled up, and then everyone just parked their car in the street.
And that's in Kelowna.
I started like walking out there. Yeah, and this is in Kelowna. I mean, Kelowna has had exactly one Liberal MP in its entire history. It's a very conservative town. But like I've never seen, I mean, I picked Andrew Scheer up from the airport. There was no one there. Pierre Poilievre comes to town to speak at a winery or something, and it's like literally a kilometer of cars and people getting out and walking to go see this guy. It was, as an observer, I was like, this is different. If people are thinking that the Pierre Poilievre election is going to go the same way that Aaron O'Toole's and Andrew Scheer's went, it's not. I don't. He may not win, but it ain't going to go the same way those elections went.
Yeah.
Well, the amount of confidence that people have had in the past couple of leaders is totally different than what is seen now. Thank goodness.
I'm not a big, like, I don't know him. I've never met him, and I'm cautious to say much about people that I haven't met.
Sure.
But he seems to have a ton of conviction, and it's really nice to see a politician say stuff like, you know, no, this is just wrong. Like, it doesn't matter what you think or what you feel or how you feel about it. It doesn't do the right thing, so we're not going to do it. It's just kind of like, oh, it's nice. And I think that's what people are responding to.
Yeah. You know what?
I think especially after Aaron O'Toole with all the flip-flopping and I'm really not too sure what policies I want or what's going to play. And Poilievre, at the very least, has his policies sorted out and he's going to stand by them, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you always wait for, right? Is the follow through. But I have high hopes. I think Aaron O'Toole, man, like, it just chaps my ass the way some people still are like, that guy was the last best hope for the CPC, and it's like, if that was it, holy shit, you people have a low opinion.
Are people still holding on to that?
O'Toole?
There's this like weirdo media core that's like, they almost are like,
Christ.
It's like there's the unbiased media, which there are a few in Canada, and then there's the biased media, and then there's this little group that don't know that they're biased, and they write this shit, and they say like, well, you know, I once had a Conservative Party membership in 1955, so let me speak as a conservative. Basically, Kim Campbell. I'm describing Kim Campbell's. They trot out in front, they drag her out in front of the cameras, and they say, look at this former Conservative Prime Minister, first female Prime Minister ever, blah, blah, blah. And then she proceeds to basically just parrot Liberal talking points for the next 20 minutes because, like, the world's moved on. Like, it's just, it's nice to see that I do kind of hope that once that we can put all this behind us. Like, how nice, I saw a picture today, someone posted on Twitter of Stephen Blaney from back when he made that comment in the House of Commons about like having a gun is a right that comes with responsibilities. And I was looking at that and I was like, shit, I was working when he said that. And that was like a damn good time. Like
Yeah.
things are so easy. I went an entire year without writing a single political article. There was no news. Nothing
Yeah.
happened. It was the year when the
Yeah.
Swiss arms were banned and before they came back,
Right.
where it was a minority who couldn't do anything, and it was just kind of like, well, there's nothing happening legally. So
Carry
we'll
on.
just review some guns and go shooting. And
Right.
I was when I had so much fun with the magazine. Now it's just been, to be honest, it's been a bit of a slog lately just because of it's hard to get a magazine out the door because every freaking 6 weeks they change the law hugely. And then I look at my content and go, half of this stuff is totally irrelevant. It's like,
So I'm gonna pull out a shitty one, I guess here. Chris W says Polyev is a politician. Do you need more to know what to expect? They're all made the same. You know what? Yes, and there's a lot of people I see on social media and that saying the same thing. But the fact of the matter is, politicians aren't going away. So we've got to. People get caught up in that, and for I think pretty good reason. But I think what I see is that people are losing sight of the fact that politicians are not going away, and we need to pick the best of the fucking worst.
but also there's nothing really wrong with it. Like we live in a transactional society. Like no one ever thinks it's
Yeah.
bad when you go into a shop and they want the exact same money yesterday for the soda that you bought. Like they want the same.
it's
What do you
natural.
expect?
Yeah.
Politicians
Yeah.
are literally just people that sell you on the notion that if they do what you want, that you'll keep voting for them and keep them in a job. It's
Well, and guess
really,
who
really
the
simple.
consumers are? Yeah.
And exactly. And like as long as politicians, there's nothing wrong with that. Like politicians going around to everyone and saying, "Hey, if you vote for me, I'll do what you want." Like that's how politics works.
Yes.
It's literally at the core base. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when they don't do what we think they want. I think when people say a politician, they're all the same, that's what they're referring to, is that politicians seem to lie.
That's right.
The thing is,
and they're in it. They have their own agendas. I think is what a lot of people are getting at, right?
and to be quite
Which
blunt,
is
I would think
possible.
Pierre Poilievre, a Poilievre government in its first year would look a lot like, in his first term, would look a lot like you'd expect it to, especially if it was a majority.
yeah.
A Poilievre government now, and it's like Trudeau's in its third term, probably would look different. Because governments run out of steam, right? Like,
Yeah.
if once you've done the stuff,
They-
what do you
yeah.
do now?
But in
Well,
Canada,
they're-
we tend to keep them around long past their expiration date.
Oh God.
I mean, Trudeau passed his expiration date, 6 months after he was elected in 2015. But I mean,
Yeah.
in all seriousness, though, I mean, to look at the two, longstanding prime ministers before him. I mean, we had Stephen Harper was 10 years,
Yep.
Yeah, I think.
and
so,
and then
decade ago.
and then Chrétien was 12 years.
I don't
Was
know
he
how
that
long
long?
Chrétien was. I was too young
I
then.
don't think so. Two terms for sure.
I thought he had more than Harper. I
We
could
had
be wrong
Chrétien.
about that.
And then there was Martin came after.
Yeah,
Would Martin come after? Yeah. Then there was Martin for a little
One
bit.
term, I think.
for a
Yeah.
very short period of time. Yeah.
But we don't. I worry that trend is like something that's going to happen longer term, because this I see a lot of it as identity politics. Because like when my
Absolutely.
dad was, when I was young, it was like you just talk about politics during the election and they talk about like what the policies were, and then everyone forget about them and they go about their life. Now it's such an identity thing, right? That
Yeah.
like you're asking people to change their identities, or because people, I think in a healthy society, people should vote for more than one party before they die. If someone only votes for one party from 18 till death, unless they died in their 30s, they probably.
And you're just an ideologue, yeah.
Yeah, you're just.
Or you're
just
a drug
partisan.
addict and you just have no emotional development from the age that
be.
you first voted.
Or you work for the government. That's another option.
Or
out
you
there.
work for
Yeah.
the government.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
not much different than being a drug addict. I don't
Just
know.
a fucking
Yeah.
robot. Yeah.
But I think, I think it's very like, I worry that we're going to see that trend continue, and we're going to see these like entrenched, because you already see it now. They always talk about these entrenched views, right? And
I worry that
worry.
more people are becoming more politically active, especially in terms of voting, but they're not taking the time to become an informed voter. They're just voting through an ideology, like you mentioned. And like the age of ideological voting is, I think, dangerous, to be perfectly honest with you, because the reality is that I think in time past, the authoritarian tendencies displayed by this government, I don't think would have been accepted in most of our modern past, if not any of our modern past.
I can't imagine. I mean, Trudeau himself said he wouldn't even do the long gun registry because no one's coming to take our guns. He said that himself in his own political career, and he's already shifting, right? So
Yep.
these things are definitely progressing, not surprisingly. But I wonder, I just don't know how things shake out in the long term. What's interesting, and I had this interesting conversation with another guy that I think is another factor for, well, we're in a politics discussion, that Twitter, because we're all on Twitter. If you're into politics, you definitely
I'm
on it.
actually not, but yeah.
Okay. So Twitter added these community notes. So you can now, if enough people say that like this tweet is incorrect, Twitter puts up a mandatory little thing that says this is basically baloney. And it's interesting because it's made me wonder where that was the rest of the time. Because I have been very frustrated at like things like the Globe and Mail story that came out with the like, conservatives want to bring back abortion because that bill that was against pregnant women being physically assaulted. And it's like, you see the tweet, and in years past, I've always been really frustrated because as a media guy, I deal with huge amounts of throttling. Like the message throttling, you guys are aware. Like, man, make a video about a motorcycle and see how far it goes compared to this, and it's insane. So the throttling on a lot of networks, but also too the straight censorship. And I'd see these tweets and these other comments of like AR-15s in the streets if Aaron O'Toole wins, and just kind of like,
Oh, fuck.
and like you don't even have a chance with people then, because then I would get on an interview and the comment isn't, so are there going to be AR-15s in the streets? It's, so there's a report that says there's going to be AR-15s in the streets. What do you have to say about that? And now it's like I can't even say the report is bullshit because now I sound like I'm just a biased,
You sound like
person.
Trump. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, crazy conspiracy theorist, right? But like, because no one digs in. And now I kind of think, admittedly, I'm not an Elon Musk fan, but he does seem to be bringing some parity back to Twitter. And I wonder if, because Twitter is so key to the media universe.
It has become,
Yeah. And I
Is
wonder,
CBC still listed as a state-funded media on Twitter?
I don't even know if they're on Twitter anymore.
So
they stopped using
CBC just no, they just got back on and they made the statement that they're going to be regulating their use or limited use.
Oh.
But we've
Well,
come
that-
back on it.
That whole
and you know
"we're out
why.
of here" lasted for a good 5 weeks.
It was a nice 5 weeks.
Shorter than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was for sure. Or it would have been, I
that's
guess, if I had
hilarious.
seen it. But the thing is, like they can't live without it. And who uses Twitter the most, I think, is probably younger people, and that's where the more impressionable people are, and they know to appeal to that to the larger audience. They appeal to the Twitter demographic.
But I suspect people probably don't want to hear my opinion on social media because, admittedly, I'm not that good at it.
We don't like opinions here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a good time to bring this back to the CS AAA discussion because there's a couple of more things to go over with this, and I think that the well, before that, maybe let's just talk about the one reaction that was maybe the strongest reaction at the meeting, and I want to get your opinion on it because you obviously were there. What was your impression of when Rod spoke?
Rod seemed quite frustrated.
I got that sense as well.
Yeah, I mean, I made the comment that it kind of felt like he was going up one side of the CS AAA and down the other because he kind of just did tee off on them over not being clear over the specific clause. If I recall correctly, I believe he was very frustrated with their lack of transparency around the so-called RAT clause about providing information on non-compliant businesses. And the money, which, as we've discussed, is obviously like a kind of a key issue in this.
Well, he also seemed upset that it was almost like he was trying to insinuate, not come straight out and say, but insinuate that what the discussion that he had with Wes was being misrepresented to the members, and that the discussion that Wes was having with individuals was not necessarily how it was being portrayed by Wes after the fact. Did you get that sense?
Yeah, and I've heard that from other board members. To be
Okay.
clear, like privately, I've heard board members say that the contract that has been presented now that we've all seen is not what they were presented with. That there was a presentation made, and it was a pretty brief, informal one that was like, the government's needing us to find out how many and what they're worth, and we're going to work with them to do that. Do you want to vote for this, yay or nay? And then this is a bit of a horse of a different color, perhaps. So it does. That is the most common complaint that I get from board members on it, is that they're saying we weren't told what this was like. And then the contract was sent around, but it wasn't kind of highlighted in a big way before anyone signed it. So the board members did see. That's why I ultimately didn't write the story, because the board members were sent the contract, but they didn't notice the email because they get a million emails a day like me. So that's just a bunch of people being busy and on a volunteer board, which, if anyone's been on a volunteer board, someone not seeing an email is not a news story.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not going to turn that into one, because these are all volunteers. Like, so, it's not.
That is an interesting thing, though, hey? Like, that's a big thing to fall under the radar.
It is, and I don't know. I guess my issue with it is just that, like, I think, like, I don't know how to feel about this, partly because I've always thought we're supposed to stick together as gun owners and, like, be a unified community. And I'm aware of the fact that, like, kind of like freedom of speech only counts when you're being offended. Like, no one wants to protect unoffensive speech. It's sort of like, if you want to stick together, it only counts if you stick together in the hard times.
Yeah.
And, like, to be quite blunt, I understand why the CSAAA signed this deal, because one thing that gun owners I have not seen this anywhere, is that gun owners don't really, like, yes, technically there's two issues at play here. There's the ideological issue of gun retailers and the entire gun community, me included, saying to everyone, keep your guns, make them run out the clock, wait for an election, do everything you can, just don't buy back, don't worry about it yet. And then a bunch of retailers kind of saying, can we get in the front of the line? There's an ideological problem there that has to do with the rights issue, specifically like rights to guns, all that. There's a business issue that makes it different, because the ideological issue is the same. Like, I get that, gun owners want gun stores to keep the same guns they're keeping because it's a mutual protest thing, right?
Yeah.
But for businesses, it's operating capital. And operating capital is what you make the rest of your money off of. When you don't have your operating capital, you can't make more money. So if you have $150,000 parked in operating capital, it's actually different than when you lose $150,000 in disposable capital. Like,
right.
Because when you lose your disposable capital, it's literally disposable. You're sending it away to burn for fun. That's what you're doing. When businesses do it, it's to make more profit that they then use to pay their lease, pay their employees, pay their insurance, pay their health plans, all that.
Well, and also, in the case of retail, it's also to purchase more inventory.
Exactly. So
I mean, that'll interrupt your entire inventory purchasing cycle. And
that's where I'd say a lot of gun owners, like, if you owned a shop and you were sitting on an inventory in your basement of literally $150,000, $200,000 worth of guns that you can't do anything with, and you haven't been able to do anything with 3 years, you would kind of be like, holy shit, because those are also, remember, this is 2019 dollars. These guns, $150,000 of guns purchased in 2019. So they're thinking this is more like $300,000 in today's money that's now sitting in their basement collecting dust. And I would defy most gun owners to be put in that position and not go, yeah, okay, like, are we going to do this or not?
Yeah.
Because, operating capital, it's different. Like, because there is an ethical issue here too, where, like, these businesses employ people. I happen to like some of these people that are employed in this industry.
Right.
If it came down to, like, if I have an employee and it's like, hey, employee, this paycheck that you rely on that helps feed your family and pay for your mortgage and everything, I'm not going to be able to pay that anymore because I'm making the decision that we're just going to keep these guns. Now, there's probably not a lot of retailers in that position now, but, like, newsflash, business owners don't respond to things now. We try and think a little bit ahead. And
in
to,
the
like,
gun industry, they have to.
Yeah. Now, where I think, and that's why I was dismayed in the meeting, because knowing the industry would reach this point, right? Like, they should have recognized there's going to be a point where, like, the industry needs to disperse these guns and get paid for them. Yeah. They should have hired KPMG as an organization. They should have put the plate around.
I remember you
super expensive.
bringing
that
that
was
up.
The thing that was the only thing I spoke about, because I thought that was the one. I kind of thought they were actually doing that. I don't know why I did. I just thought they were doing it. But if they had started an independent audit with an independent auditing firm with like KPMG or a similarly well-known company, the government could have approached them with this contract and they could have turned around and said, actually, we've already done it. Here's our independent report. And then also handed that over to the parliamentary budget officer and the Conservatives and the NDP.
Yeah.
Because now, instead of being on our back foot fighting from this defensive position, we're providing the politicians that with the information that in the NDP's case, they probably need to see so they know what they're signing up for and supporting. And the Conservative case, it's the tool book, right? You open up this stuff and you start to beat the Liberals over the head with the prices that the industry put forward.
Yes.
And then there'd be no concerns over personal information or like data collection or gun collection because KPMG would be working for you. You would be in control of what data they get completely. So
it would have been a way to get ahead of the whole thing. And you know, I'll tell you, when I first heard about this thing, before all of the information came out, the only thing that we really knew was that $700,000 was involved, and it was supposed to involve a buyback of inventory for retailers. And my initial thoughts were like, why are people mad about this? Like the buyback thing for retailers, and it's very easy for a consumer, especially a consumer who has never had to experience being a small business owner, let alone being a small business owner in an industry as volatile and contentious as the gun industry, and say, well, they shouldn't have given an inch. It shouldn't, like, never give them anything. That's really easy to sit at home and say. But I can 100%, I can empathize with a retailer's or even a distributor's position on wanting to get compensation for that inventory 3 years later. As so far as the 700,000, and Rod seemed really upset about the 700,000, and maybe it's just because of maybe he was having discussions that maybe aren't being made public, and it was all like, you know, took him by surprise too. But when I first heard about it, I was like, well, look at it this way. If the CSAAA is advocating on behalf of the gun industry, are they going to be in a better position to advocate for the gun industry if they're struggling to pay their bills? Or are they going to be able to advocate on behalf of the industry better if they are properly funded and you know, well funded and therefore well staffed? And you know, everybody, well, it's blood money, it's blood money, it's blood money. Well, we've all taken blood money from the Liberal Party, personally and otherwise. Like anybody who received a single COVID check took blood money from the Liberal Party. Any business that took the rent subsidies when our businesses were shut down, in my mind, it's no different.
No, I mean, like, we're government funded. To be quite blunt, it's come up in the past. People have tried to hold it against us, but like, I have no shame in it because it's the Canadian Periodical Fund. It's been running since 1976.
Right.
Like, the mission statement for the fund is to help smaller Canadian communities receive media content that otherwise would not exist because the market's so small that, like, to be quite blunt, Calibre, the U.S. gun makers don't really advertise much because Canadian gun market's not that big. They just go like, oh, we sell more guns in California, whatever.
Name a gun range that runs kids like cadets programs or air rifle programs or archery programs that don't receive, like in our province, it's
and they should. Like, and that's something that, to be honest, the gun community has to kind of stop thinking in this really like the government bad, us good. Like, it's very dangerous. First of all, people notice, so like it gives you a really weird outlook in the world too. But also too, like, your gun ranges should be getting government funding. Your gun stores should be, because it's like you say, this is money with which we can build things. Calibre has been built off of a lot of this stuff. It's the only thing that lets us keep going through that. Through 2021, to be honest, that's pretty much the only reason we could keep up with the paper prices. So it just helps us. I think with the CSAAA, they had to tell their members. That's the big...
Yes.
The big thing was like, it's a really big decision that I can see both sides of, but I can't see the part where they didn't put it out to the members, because there is that ethical issue of like
communication.
And to be honest, I don't know if I would have signed this agreement if I was in the CSAA's position. I think I would have told the government, you got to take out that clause about non-compliant businesses. I would not.
Yes.
That would be my line in the sand of like, you just can't. And I wonder if that's why they didn't really highlight the here's the whole contract when they
Yes.
got the vote, because like it's really hard to read
I would
that and
hope
not
that
just
it's-
go like,
Yeah, I would hope that it's not that West didn't read the contract properly. I think you got to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one.
you never know what the government said. Might have said, yeah, you know what, this is in the contract, but we're not gonna. It's just in there. We're not gonna bother with it. Don't worry.
But how do
You
you
know.
take their word on that? It's not what they say; it's what's written on the paper, and you've got to
Trust
know
me.
that. You've got to know that.
But this is where we get into a bit of the asymmetricness of the situation, because like Wes is a business owner. He's got a lot of experience selling guns out of Ontario. And Jen's awesome. She's new at the job. And they're stepping toe to toe with the entire federal government in a negotiation over this whole thing. Like there's an extreme level of disparity between those two power dynamics and experience levels. Like how many contracts for massive federal programs has Wes looked over, right? Like
Yeah, and that's not like I'm not trying to
it's
shit
not a
on
knock
West.
against them. Like I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
seen them either. Like the first if I was in the CSAAA, the first thing I'd do is just go hire like probably one of the top tier Ottawa lawyers that works in policy stuff and be like, I need you to look at this for me because like this is way over my pay grade.
In which
And
case,
that's the
they would
thing.
need
It's-
funding.
Yes,
Right?
but the thing there is like I get a little frustrated with that because as we've seen from the CCFR's lawsuit, the freaking money is there in this community to
From the
fund
people,
things.
sure.
If you
Sure it
give
is.
people
Sure
an
it is.
idea of what you're funding first and they like it.
That's fair,
If the
yep.
CSAAA had sent to all of like if you work in the industry, if CSAAA had sent an email around to everyone in the gun industry saying, we need your support to fund an independent audit to tell the government how much our prohibited inventory is worth, they would have sold so many memberships that would have paid for the program.
think
And then the
that's
next
true.
year, when they're not running the audit and they still have all those members, that's just free money that now they can do more with, right? But they keep doing this, well, we have no funding, so we do nothing. So we have no funding. And it's like, guys, like come
A
up
bit
with an
more-
idea. Put
A bit
something
more
out there.
entrepreneurial spirit needs to be, yeah. But you know,
we
I was going to say, I can only imagine trying to be, like you said, very different skill sets between the Wes's two positions, and I can only imagine trying to be the guy navigating the what must be an absolute landmine, or sorry, minefield, in trying to work with the Liberal government in the position that he's in. I can only
Which way do
imagine.
you turn?
Well, I can only imagine that he's probably ignored, lied to, told half truths, told whole
right.
lies, misdirection. Well, we have an understanding here, but we've changed our mind 2 weeks later. I can only imagine, withholding of information, I'm sure, is probably a big thing. It probably cannot be an easy thing. However, I don't think that it excuses the big thing that we've identified as probably the big problem here, which was the lack of communication with their members over what was going on.
Yeah, and then I don't think if they had communicated more and been more transparent with some of the stuff, I think they would have found, like, for example, Rod would not have said what he said in that meeting if he had seen the contract beforehand or it had been kind of more accurately represented. I don't think he would have said what he said in that meeting because that was the brunt of what he was getting at, was that he just, the CSAAA was very keen to go out there and say, we've talked to everyone and everyone agrees with us, without telling everyone what it was. So of course it's kind of like, well, no, we didn't agree with this. This isn't what we were sold. So like it
And
is
he seemed
frustrating,
upset
but
that they went out on a ledge initially and then had to like scoot off of that ledge super quick. And I think they were worried about being pushed over it along with the CSAAA.
there was a huge, I think, I mean, to be honest, when all this happened, like I didn't really hear much about it because I'm not, like, everyone was telling me about it, but like I'm totally unaffected. I didn't see any consumers because like I'm not a business that's affiliated, so I got nothing. Like, so when I get messages from Ryan Harriman, who's like, man, I'm getting like death threats to my shop over this.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea that people were feeling that way. Plus, too, there's a bit of a geo thing here because, like, I gotta say, CSAAA is just not that big a thing out west. Like, their membership is predominantly Ontario-based because their sales people, like Jen, who works there, does the advocacy and communications and memberships. She's in Ontario.
Yeah.
They don't come out here, so it's really just kind of isolated, and it's very much a like outside looking in, and I think that could also, people should understand that might also inform some of Rod God, I'm tired. Rod's opinion in that meeting because
he is in
he's
the
out
West,
west
you
too.
think?
Yeah, I know he is. I mean, I used to shoot at the Abbotsford range with him.
Yeah.
We used to have lunch and stuff, but I think we're on the outside looking in, and I think there would be a bit of the, I guess if I had been a business that they said like Calibre endorsed this, I would be very like, no, the fuck I didn't. And there'd be a little bit of me that would want to stand up and get my anger off my chest just so everyone could tell like, no, I really didn't, you know?
Yeah. That was the sense I got for sure.
Yeah. I got the sense he was speaking to the room more than Wes.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that's where I do go with the like, that's where I do wonder about the unity question. You know, is that the time to tear a strip off of Wes, or is it the time to privately say, hey, Wes, don't fuck with me again, or we're never working with you? And then publicly say, yeah, we don't appreciate the lack of transparency. We don't appreciate this clause. We do think that you guys should step back, but we will support whatever decision you make because you are our industry. You are our retailers, our distributors.
Who's to say that what we heard is not a version of that?
Yeah.
Maybe it was just a little more extreme on both sides.
And I mean, that's sort of like, I know everyone likes the drama, but I don't have it in me to. I don't report on the organizations, to be honest, very much because like every time I do, there's just some negative shit that happens.
There's something that happens.
Yeah,
For
I've reported on all of them at one point, and every time there's just. The last time I reported on an organization, I woke up to like a bunch of messages at 2 a.m. from people telling me that there was a bunch of other prominent people talking about how Calibre is a liberal-funded shitbag magazine, basically.
Sake, yeah.
And these are all people that if you
Smearing
saw their
campaign.
names, you'd be like, seriously? They were saying that? Because it's people that you expect better from. And like, the comments are all deleted, but it's just kind of like, are you fucking kidding me? Because like, I make one legitimate journalistic observation, and it's like, okay, whatever, dude. Yeah. And like,
that is a problem in our industry. There's very much a George Bush Jr. sort of, if you're not with us, you're against us. And there's no room for constructive criticism.
There's none. And that's, again, how can you stand up? And I'll just put all the organizations on blast. I don't give a shit which one you are and if it starts with C or N. But at the end of the day, if you're going to stand up and have the fucking gall to tell gun owners that we stand together and we'll work with anyone, well, recognize that doesn't mean only when it's easy.
Yeah.
Like, literally, it's the opposite. Like, if you want to, like, it's like family. Like, when they're at their worst is when you got to be at your best. That's when they need you the most. Like, this is CSAAA, to be honest, kind of at its worst. I've been in this industry a long time. CSAAA has not been a bright, shining star in this industry for a very long time. They've had various... It's on its upswing now, to be honest. It was doing a bit better suddenly. But this is definitely a low point. And I think this is when, like, the gun community could have, and there are some individuals that could have reached out a hand and said, look, yeah, you made a mistake. Let's figure out a way out of this together, because the liberals are going to try and break us up, and this is how that starts, and we're not going to let them.
And like, that's the thing. The one thing that's bothered me the most about this so far is it's obvious that this whole thing with Mendocino jumping the gun on the announcement and everything after that, this whole thing was intended to divide the community. And guess what? It fucking worked.
Sure as hell.
Because the reality is the Liberal Party is always playing chess when it comes to politics. We like to think that they're a bunch of morons and trust fund babies, but the Liberal Party knows how to play chess with politics. And we're still trying to figure out which side of the checker goes face up on the checkerboard.
Yeah. And I always think when we do the coverage, if anyone's wondering why we decide what we cover, I always think like, what's in the best interest of Canadian gun owners? Like just Joe Blow gun owner. That's it. Yeah. And in this case, like I sat down thinking I'm going to spend all day digging into this highly controversial story. I'm going to have a whole bunch of really uncomfortable conversations with people that I generally respect and work with and have for a decade. And then the second I started making calls, I started recognizing, well, like there isn't really much of a story here. It's just a bad contract that they kind of got maybe duped into signing through some people not checking their emails and that kind of thing.
And maybe a few internal policies that need to be, followed a little bit better.
And then the second thing I thought was, the happiest people to see this article will be the Liberal Party of Canada. And then I went, I don't want to write this article anymore. Like, this is not information that the average, if you're really into it, then you're on podcasts like this and you're watching it and you're learning about it. But when we go and broadcast it out to tens of thousands of people in an article, Well, now we're informing people that may not have known about this, which, to be quite honest, it's just not a story that anyone really will care about.
Right.
Because it's, in terms of the gun community, like, again, everyone has to remember the guys that are in this podcast and are listening to it are like 10%. The other 90%
If that.
are mowing the lawn, playing golf, hanging out at the bar.
Yeah.
You know, and then come September, they'll go grab their gun again. They'll go aim, and they like
Yep.
guns. They care about gun rights. They vote about guns, but it's not their main hobby. There's a lot of those guys, and those are the guys where it's kind of like you tell them that this organization is signing a contract with liberals, and they go, wait, what? And suddenly now it's creating more of a problem. Where, to be
Right.
quite honest, the biggest problem here is the division it's created, because I seriously doubt this contract's going to go anywhere. Like, they don't have the money. They haven't been said yet. That's one thing
Yeah.
CSAAA said they'd not been paid.
Yeah.
They don't know when they'll get paid. That contract, to be honest, doesn't really look. Again, I'm not an expert. It looks like a contract that was signed so that Mendocino could make an announcement, because there's no way to get out of it. And any reasonable contract that they want to actually enforce, there's a way for parties to get out, because no one signs a contract without a way to go, out.
Yeah.
I
well,
know
that's
your
part
firearms.
of it.
I just
A
want to
con-
amend, because I noted a comment here. My firearms are not a hobby, because I want that. Your firearms are not, but for a lot of people they are, and that's what people got to remember. Like, that's the average gun owner. The average gun owner, it's not a lifestyle. It is just a hobby.
For those of us who it is a lifestyle, we are the minority of the minority.
Yes.
We are, for sure. Yeah. What, for all of us here, I think firearms really kind of define who we are in a lot of ways. It is our circle of friends, our herd,
Well, just look at the three of us, for Christ's sake. I mean, we like, it's not easy doing a podcast every Friday all the time, and even the effort that we put into it, sometimes we fail at it. Plus, we're trying to do YouTube channels. It is our life. You literally run the preeminent gun magazine in this country. Like nobody can say that it's not your life, but we are not representative of the majority of gun owners, let alone the majority of Canadians.
And that was really hard to learn, because you do kind of, like, if you're deep into a hobby, you just assume everyone's as enthusiastic as you about it. And then you go to a Cabela's and you realize, the guy standing next to you that goes like, Remington Savage, who cares? What's the difference? Is most gun owners.
I'm
And
more
you're just going there
interested
like,
in
who
the camel
cares?
clothing. Yeah. Blasphemy!
it's just such a, and it's very strange that way. But I think that's where, like, gun owners should keep those people in mind when they look at this stuff and think about these things, because, like, that's where, like, when G4 and G46, those amendments were dropped and there was so much pressure placed on them, it was those gun owners that made up the brunt of that pressure, because they don't get active very often, but when they do, there's a lot of them. And it doesn't, like, when you're dealing with, there's 2.3 million gun owners, right? If the 10% of us are the really, like, hardcore, really engaged, constantly consuming media, that kind of thing, like, you're probably writing letters already, but you're 230,000 people across the country, split up into 330 ridings. Well, that's not a lot of emails per riding, right?
That's right.
When the other 90% get off the bench, like, even if 10% of them write a letter, oh my gosh, like, if all of them write letters, it just buries them. And I think that's where, if our community and our organizations did a better job of thinking of those people more, I think we would have a lot more power to wield. I think if they thought about reaching those people more, it's interesting, because the TACOM show is an interesting one that comes up, because there's been some debate about that show's name, Tactical Competition, right? The anti-gun groups have kind of highlighted some of the imagery around it and the tactical use and all that sort of thing. And I mean, it's interesting to think, like, like, I wonder if that show would be a more impactful advocacy thing if it was something else. And I mean, that's just pondering. That is not a criticism, because, like, that show is that show, and that show is great. So, like, go to that show. But also, shows don't exist for advocacy. They're a business, right? You put a show on, you sell booths, you make money. So it's a different thing. But, like, you just kind of wonder that sometimes, because a lot of them I think a lot of them have modeled themselves after American organizations with their rhetoric, their tone, even their very specific methods of messaging, the social media use, that kind of thing. And that is not representative of the majority of gun owners in Canada. Like, just in terms of, like, how they see firearms, like, and I think it hampers us a bit. So it'd be nice if that was
For sure.
not the case, but What are
Yeah,
you
and
gonna do?
we've seen evidence of the same type of thing for the last couple of years. Like take for example a Calgary gun show, right? It was it was much more. There's very much a divide between the sort of traditional, the antique, the the historical type
Mhm.
firearms and the newer stuff, and they don't play well together, honestly. Um, it's we're very divided. There's a couple different camps in the firearms community, and
Funny
I
thing
don't know
is
what it's
though,
going to take
like,
to
have you
get
guys ever
everybody
seen
together.
Division at a gun range though?
Yes.
No, well,
Like, I think in 10
to a
years of
small
going,
degree.
I think I've seen like maybe 2 comments about like guns that I've taken, and one was a 50. So a guy was like, "That's a really big gun." I was like, "Yep." He's like, "Is it loud?" I was like, "What do you think?" It's got a muzzle brake on it the size of a Coke can, buddy.
Only
Possibly.
the first shot is loud.
You might want to move a few
Yeah.
stalls that way. And he just packed up his stuff and left. He didn't complain even. He just went, "Oh, it's too loud for me. Sorry." And that was it, you know. And it
Yeah.
was a bit of a snark to it. I felt bad, but like, what am I gonna do? Like, I got to test the thing.
Yeah.
And other than that, a few
I have
times running drills, but
I haven't encountered it in terms of like the type of gun that I've shot, but I think I am also in a little bit of a unique situation in the area that I'm in and the ranges that are available. But I've had a couple of interesting situations. Some of which I will speak at a later time on the show, but
Bro.
unfortunately can't talk about right now. But
No.
yeah,
that sounds illegal.
not legal, but certainly social repercussions. If I were to
Yeah.
talk about it right now, which is, I suppose, part of the point that I'm trying to make as well, that if I were to talk about this right now, there would be social repercussions.
That's it.
But yeah, I definitely have encountered it for sure. And I think that that's the, I've said it before on the show. We always talk about unity and we're all here for the same thing and we're all here for the same reason, but we're not. You know, the farmer who owns a firearm because he needs to, you know, worry about wildlife or you know, defense on his farm, is not into firearms for the same reason that I'm into firearms. I'm into firearms for hunting and for sport. And let's say I wasn't even in it for hunting, then me and that farmer would really be into firearms for two very different reasons. You know, even look at me and Kurt. You know, we don't have any contentious differences, but Kurt's a long range bolt action guy. Never even owned a semi-automatic. Like when you fired the R18 the other day, was that the first time you had ever fired a semi-auto?
No, but
But close.
it's a different experience than what I'm geared toward, for sure.
And you have infinitely more experience in firearms than I do. But like I'm willing to bet, like and I'm willing to bet, Kurt, and we already know this with bolt guns. If you and I just did a little friendly match with bolt guns, it would be laughable. And I genuinely think that if we did it with semi-automatic rifles, it would be exactly the opposite.
Yes, I can almost guarantee that. Yep.
And not that I'm great with semi-automatics. You are quite good with bolt guns, but just the focus and the difference of what we've been interested in firearms, they're not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like, I mean, I don't know if I've really admitted too much of this, but like, for me, guns are almost entirely about the principle. I actually don't enjoy shooting.
Oh,
Really?
amen.
I do not.
Oh,
I haven't
really?
enjoyed shooting for probably 6, 7 years. I shoot a ton for work, right? Like testing a lot of guns. They're on a lead sled. It's not a lot of fun shooting. It's replicant shooting
work.
where it's like, I've always done the idea of like, if we review a gun and then we test it, that someone should be able to pull one off the shelf and get a similar result, right?
Yeah.
So it's super boring. It's very methodical. It's just lame, basically. And it's really loud, and it takes a while to get out to the range. And I got 2 kids, and my main hobby is motorcycling. Like for me, that is, and yes, I say hobby because like that is my main hobby. Like if I have free time, I ride a motorcycle or fix a motorcycle or play with cars. But for me, guns are a principle and they're a business. Like I will be like, I don't really like shooting, but I will absolutely be the first guy to be like, you should absolutely not take people's guns away. People should absolutely be able to have firearms because there's a principle. Because like I grew up anti-gun. Like again, going back, no one ever Like, my family is anti-gun as they come. To this day, my mom has never fired a gun.
Really?
Like, she saw my office once and left my house quite angry, because she's just really doesn't like them, and that's fine. Like, it's fine for people to have different opinions, right? Like, I don't like eggplant. No one's like,
exactly.
Eat this aubergine. Like, it's not going to happen. But like, I don't think so. Growing up that way, like, I came to guns through academics. I studied forensic psychology at UBC for a little bit, and some criminology, and like, I studied gun politics, effectively comparing the US and Canada, and I found it was a surprising result, because although the US, even then, this was going back to 2008, even then, the concealed carry, which started up in the 80s in the States, the FBI crime stats are showing that it's had a tremendous effect. And when you get into some very specifics, like North and South Dakota passed shall issue versus may issue at different times. One was 5 years after the other, but they have very, very, very similar cultures and socioeconomic factors. The crime rate for one of them dropped by half almost overnight. And the other one remained high until they passed it. And everywhere that passed it, the crime rate continued to drop at a rate twice as fast everywhere else. So even now, even though the US has a higher crime rate, if you compare Canada's crime rate to the US crime rate, obviously ours is going up, but even when ours was going down, the US crime rate was going down twice as fast. So whether or not that's attributable to concealed carry, there's far more academics have written about it than me, but that was my introduction. So my perspective on guns is from that rights-based stats perspective. So like, I think it's nice because it gives me the ability to talk about this stuff somewhat dispassionately, because like, when you guys talk about guns, like, you guys like shooting bolt guns, you guys like shooting semis. I don't like shooting any gun. I like old guns, like, because they're fun to have. Like, my favorite gun is probably my Browning double auto shotgun and my MR73 handgun. Those are my two favorites, because those are like probably some of the nicest made firearms I own, and like, I just get a tremendous amount of pleasure from owning them. And I view it as a skill set, like a martial skill set that you should keep up. So I go to the range to practice, but I should practice this, and it's a skill set I need for work, so I got to practice. But like, it's a business, and it's something that I come to from the principal side. So I'm that guy that when a lot of these gun organizations go off, like, I'm there with them because I'm obviously on the principal side. But if it wasn't for that, I think they're losing some people there that otherwise would be available to them.
Yeah, something I've thought about a lot lately in the past, I don't know, year or so, I suppose, is, that I like shooting. I don't like the volume type shooting. I like precise stuff, knowing where each shot is going, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? A huge part of my gun life, I guess, is the hand loading, the nerdy bits, figuring out what each gun likes and tinkering. I'm an old machinist, and I like tinkering. I like precise. I like knowing exactly what every change makes, all that kind of stuff.
You're a control freak.
More than likely.
But that's what I like, though, too. Like, the shooting that I've done the most is international trap, and you have to shoot 24-gram loads for that, which are very expensive.
Sure.
So I started reloading them, and like, that was probably peak enjoyment for me, was sitting in a garage running an old Pacific 366 press, pumping out like 1,000 rounds for because the one shooting I do enjoy, when I say I don't like shooting guns, the one kind of shooting that I do really freaking enjoy is I love sporting clays. Like, it's like the one thing where it's like, I don't like guns because, like, to be quite honest, the gunfire is not good for my anxiety and PTSD, so it causes a lot of issues and stress. But put me on a sporting clays course with 4 buddies out in the woods with birds chirping, nice. Oh my gosh, it does not get better. Like,
You're the rich guy, shotgun guy.
What I am is like I'm the anti-FUD.
The anti-FUD.
I just like old wood and steel guns, and I like to look at them on my wall. But by God, don't be banning anything. So it's a weird, like,
you're the steampunk gun guy. Yeah,
sort of.
I just like translating my verbal diarrhea into firearm form, and translating accuracy by volume.
That's right. Yeah, high volume.
Yeah, well, eventually you got to hit something, right? which is
true.
Which is probably why I shoot so much 22, just because I don't have the pocketbook to match my desire for volume. But yeah,
I like 22s as well because they're pretty quiet. They can be a lot of fun. I've been meaning to get out because the local range here that I used to be the president of has like a pretty mint little 300-meter range. It'd be kind of handy for, they've had some decent little Okanagan precision rimfire matches there and stuff. And I've been meaning to get out there, but to be honest, the only reason that I haven't is like the kids coming along. Like my son's 2.5, and that was kind of like right as they were taking off with the precision rimfire locally, and I was like, oh, there goes all my free time. So it's, and then with my daughter 2 months ago, whatever free time I had left has also disappeared now. So it's not getting easier. But yeah,
I suppose that's why I didn't have kids.
I'll also say, just because I read the comments, I do know that you can carry a gun on a motorcycle. I don't need more reasons for the police to pull me over on my motorcycles, because that happens frequently enough. And I know that I actually talked with my psychologist about talking about PTSD. I didn't talk to a lawyer because I don't have the money for that. I know that there's some risks, but I'm not too concerned. Like, I'm mentally stable. I have a psychologist that could easily assess that for anyone that was to inquire. And I want to talk about it because I think it's important, because gun owners, like, I'm literally hoping to have her on an interview with me, so because gun owners always think that they can't talk about this stuff, and like that's not quite true. Like, you really got to pose an actual mental risk, and like have someone report.
It's just the risk of it being used against us, I think, is
but you know what that is?
Common thought, right?
It's the stigma of it being used against us. And there's so many guys in this community that have, like, dude, when I went to SHOT Show, like, you were there, like, it was so common because everyone was so stressed out. Well, going to SHOT Show and talking to people, and the number of guys that I come up to, and just, they were like, I'm a freaking wreck, dude. Like, I don't know how I'm going to cope. Like, the second I would say, like, yeah, I'm dealing with a huge amount of anxiety lately, they would just open up and be like, I'm freaking dying. I can't sleep. I can't, like, I'm drinking too much. And like, I think I might be depressed. Like, guys talking like really candidly about this stuff. And it kind of opened my eyes to the notion, like, I've been quite open privately. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but people that know me, like my friends, my family, it's not
in
not
your
anything
circle
that people don't. Like, if you were to even ask people in the industry, they would probably say, yeah, we know Dan has PTSD. He's talked about it before. But like, to make it public, it's because I think people have to talk about this stuff, because it is, if you have PTSD, or like, I used to drink too much. I don't drink now. You know, like, if you got to talk about this stuff, because it was someone else talking about this stuff and saying that I went, oh, I never knew that about you. And he's like, yeah, you know, it's not a big thing. I just don't drink anymore. I can't. It's not for me. And I was like, wow, that's, like normal people. Like, that's what an alcoholic is. Normal people. Not what you think, right? So it's like, so you work on this stuff. And I'm not going to stop talking about it because I own guns. I'll sell the guns and I'll keep talking about it if I have to.
Well, there's something there about not really, it's very easy to feel like you're the only one that feels this way, because you can't feel other people's feelings. And so you're feeling these things. The only way to really understand that you're still part of normal human society is to understand that other people are feeling the similar things. And the only way to do that is to talk, to communicate.
And like, dudes don't talk, and no dudes, like the gun dude, this 10% that we all belong to, I honestly think it's hilarious, because like, we're so the same. Like, we all generally buy the same watches. Everyone buys a G-Shock, a Rolex, or an Omega. Everyone has a smartphone. Usually it's the latest and greatest iPhone or Android, because we're all gear geeks. Everyone either owns a truck or a car they generally care about. There's not a lot of Toyota Corollas at the gun range parking lot. Most of them have motorcycles. There's a lot of old machinists, or people that have lathes and that kind of thing. There's a lot of, and what I've kind of come around is, it is this notion of, dare I say, the prototypical toxic male, but he's not, not toxic. It's just, we like our freedom, which for me is encapsulated by things that can get me out into the world, like cars and motorcycles. And guns that make me self-reliant, so that when I'm out in the world, I don't need other people. That's the same as, like, I value reloading and machining and learning how to run a lathe and milling machine, because then I can make my own parts. I don't need to buy them. So it's a mindset that I think we all kind of have. And part of that mindset is also, I'm tough enough. And like, by God, we just aren't. Like, there's no one on the planet that is tough enough to go their entire life without needing any kind of help. Like, that's insane. So it's also insane to think that help might not be in the mental area, right? So I think for this specific community, it's all dudes. they're all scared to talk about mental health because they're worried that their guns are going to get banned, or they're worried that someone's going to call them crazy. And that's why I figured, like, it's no one else is doing it, so I guess I got to.
Crazy's a spectrum.
So how
Lead the
Calibre
pack.
started, no one else made a magazine, so I guess I got it.
Right.
It's like the story of my life.
Luke's got a question for you. He wants to know
Have
if
I
you've
tried maple seed?
seed.
I haven't. There is one cropping up. I know there's local courses now because the local Kelowna has been a very interesting thing to move to, because from Vancouver, there's the thing gun owners don't realize is how, I think we talked about this last time, is that so much of these tastes are regional. You need gun stores and gun ranges in your community to put on maple seed events, so that gun stores will sell you a Canuck TM22 there with a mag like that. Because if they don't, then they just sell Ruger 1022s because there's nothing else going on in the area. So it just started up, but again, it kind of started up around the same time as my kids came along. So I was going to try and make it out to the first one that was held here, but my son came along instead.
Well, I'll say this: they're a fun thing for sure. They're a fun community thing to do, but I think they're probably a very valuable thing to do as for most people. Depending on what you want to do with guns, again, I think in Rooster's case, ELR, PRS, I don't see a whole other than fundamentals. I don't see a whole lot of value in doing a maple seed for that sort of stuff. Hunting, I definitely see a lot of value in taking maple seed training. 3-gun, handgun, all of that sort of stuff. Again, don't see the value in maple seed, obviously with handgun, but I think even just on the community aspect of it, and depending on the type of shooter that you want to be, the fundamental training that you get from maple seed, I think, is a very valuable thing.
I think I would just go, honestly, to speak for the 90% gun owner, apparently, I would just go to see the people. Like same reason I like sporting clays. My sporting clays course, I don't even remember my scores. I don't remember my high score. I never remember. No one even knew the score at the end of the walk. It was just like,
yeah, right.
You kind of did
Just
better or
giggling.
good. Yeah, you're just out with your friends, and having fun and joking, and it's like golf, right? It's very social. And for me, that's the kind
But
of
everyone
thing I like.
gets real serious when the qualifying targets come out. It's all fun and games until somebody can get a rifleman patch.
I will be the guy that does not take that too seriously, but I do want to get out to one. I will say too, I love what that organization is doing. Like, holy crap, phenomenal. That is one thing of like, they are, I keep meaning to email them, and if things were better financially because of the way the business is these days, hopefully things are good soon. We'll be donating to help support and whatnot with them, because they're just like unequivocally, since we spent the first half of this conversation just bashing the crap out of all the organizations, Maple Seed is an organization that is crushing it. Like,
for sure.
No bad things to say, just awesome.
I think the two biggest faces of Maple Seed in the last couple of years really have been Rick and Kelly, and they're phenomenal people. Locally, we only have one shoot boss in our province, a gentleman by the name of Ryan B. Tempson. You don't get nicer guys than Ryan. I would probably, I'm just going to come out and say it, knowing that there's no chance that this would ever happen, but I think I would take a bullet for Ryan B. Temps. He's such a swell human being.
But just a 22 one, right?
Just a 22.
That's right.
And we're talking like lower abdomen or the hip, like nowhere else. Yeah. But still, taking a bullet is taking a bullet. And you got Adriel in Alberta, and unfortunately they haven't. Ryan is covering Manitoba right now, but I've met maple seeders in a bunch of other different provinces, and they're just really they've done a really good job of attracting really good people.
Yes. And I think it's so easy to see with 22s as well, because that's such an introductory gun.
It's very
Your
accessible.
mindset is so, and it's really I think it's not, like you say, people get serious about the badges and stuff, but from an organizer's perspective, it's probably a lot of fun to put on, and you don't get that like an IPSC match. There's going to be drama. It's an IPSC match. Those people love shooting guns and drama. It's their favorite thing. But there's going to be something. And that's the kind of stuff that organizers get burned out on, right? Is 'cause
Yeah.
there's always that one guy. Like we had it in like when I was involved in the gun club there in the Shotgun Vancouver Gun Club, when there were competitions, there was always like the one guy that registered. You'd be like, oh,
He's gonna bring some drama.
exactly. He's gonna complain about someone cheating or a rule, and we're all just here to fucking dick around and have some fun on a Saturday. Like,
There was drama in Maple Seeds when Trevor Furlot did them, but it was always like fun drama. I haven't met Trevor Furlot very many times. Only like I think 2 Maple Seeds, I think that I was at, that he was at. But he's just like, when he rage quits, he's just fun.
I haven't met him ever.
No,
And no, and because
I
I've
miss
been-
him on Slamfire, man. I like that surly attitude. I love it. I really miss I'm saying
I
that, I'm
can
putting this
relate
out there
to
in
him
the
a
world.
lot.
I miss Trevor Furlot. I just do. Anyway.
Well, see, that's because I was in the conventional media world, and all this social media type stuff is newer to me.
Yeah.
I'm still learning everyone, so I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know if I even talked to Trevor, to be honest. I know maybe I did do a Slamfire radio a few years ago, and he was on there, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was a relatively short interview. It was just about some gun band stuff. I think it was a while ago.
Yeah. I think most of their interviews are like 20 to 30 minutes out of their episode. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a shorter little interlude there. Yeah, that was about it.
Well, we'll just put this out in the universe that Trevor Furlot gets back into guns and rejoins.
Oh, did he get out
something.
of guns completely? Is that
Yeah,
what-
put down that bow. Get back in the gun.
No, he's not even into archery. From what I understand,
I
he
thought
got into
that's-
RCs,
Oh, okay.
like
we
RC
are
cars.
all the same. I've wanted to buy one of those for so long, but every time I put one in a cart, I'm just like, this just seems like a lot of money for effectively a 14-year-old's toy. And then I look at my garage full of cars that need work and go, oh, fuck, never mind.
Well, I remember listening to Slamfire Radio in like 2019, and he was trying to collect one of every Cooey.
Yes.
And,
Oh,
and
I
so
remember that.
he was talking about all that stuff. And then the order in council dropped, and all of a sudden I sold all my Cooeys, sold all my guns. All I have left is this and this and this gun, like just a handful of guns. And I like, oh man, he's done. Like the OIC defeated him. And then, a couple of months later, he announced he was leaving Slamfire Radio.
I mean, that's the kind of thing where, to be honest, like, and I'm not saying he did, but like, I know people who have left this industry because of mental health.
Yeah.
Or the OIC, because like, I gotta say, in my life, like, there's a few formative memories, like my wedding, all these great things, but like, biggest one for sure will be 9/11. It's the biggest memory of anyone in my era. Like, and one of them is, it's not up there with 9/11, obviously. I'm not comparing them, but in terms of like me, who has had a relatively not exciting life, sitting on that couch on May 1st and hearing Justin Trudeau say, we're going to ban 1,500 kinds of firearms completely without any kind of notice or consultation, having my business in this industry just tank as a result. Because I mean, that's what we've kind of specialized in, right? Like, you want to read about hunting guns, there's hunting magazines. We kind of only did the guns that were different in Canada, which are handguns, ARs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that, like, it literally made me kind of sick to my stomach. And everyone in the industry, everyone associated with it, and people who, the top 10%, these guys for whom it is a huge part of our identity, that's like a huge gut punch. And like, it's really hard. And I know that everyone knows what I mean when I say this, is like, other people don't get it. Like, you're walking around every day and you'll think, God, I got my fucking AR like sitting in the safe. I wish I could just go to the range and like, even me who doesn't like shooting guns, I liked my AR-15. It was my favorite rifle. It's the one I liked shooting,
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'll think of that gun not infrequently, and I'll get a little sad or I'll get angry. But the big thing is, I feel very alone, because if I'm sitting in a restaurant or I'm walking down the street, I know that unless I'm talking to someone who I know owns a gun, I know that anyone I talk to about this is not, instead of saying what they should say, which is, wow, that's super shitty, the government's just going to steal your crap for no reason, they say, well, those are really dangerous. Why did you have one in the first place? Right. And like, that is so isolating. And like, I think, because I listened to a lot of Slamfire Radio, and I knew Trevor was pretty, like, I don't know him, but I gathered from he was super invested. Like, he was into this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the more you're into it, the more that aloneness has got to be there. Because, like, that's your identity that no one else can see. And Like that's taken a huge toll on me. It's taken a huge toll on the industry guys too. Is that attitude of like no one understands, like no one else.
I'll,
And I
I'll,
think that's where, if we could be a bit more open about mental health amongst ourselves, we might have a few more gun owners. Not that they're going to go kill
sure.
themselves, because I know Paulie's going to try and take every word I say the wrong way. But like,
Yeah.
no,
Polly
Yeah.
doesn't listen to this shit, but yeah.
well, I'm always cognizant of like someone could find something and clip it, right?
Of course, yeah,
That
yeah.
gun owners will sell their guns because they're uncomfortable. They're causing anxiety, causing stress. Like, I think there are a lot of gun owners for whom guns are now more a source, or not maybe more a source of stress, but they are significantly more stressed to own than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Guns
They
used
are,
to be like,
for
oh
sure.
yeah, you can buy them and just own them and be totally
Right.
the government.
Nobody
Like in the
bothers you.
Harper age,
You don't bother anybody else. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
back in the days when there were people, again, very large and prominent people in this organizations that were standing up on CGN and saying things like, we'll work with anyone. If
Yep.
you vote for whomever you want. Harper didn't do anything with guns, so it seems pretty unlikely the liberals will. They won't go near
Yeah.
them. They won't touch guns, and like that really happened. And I think like, yeah, it's just kind of, it's
Little
tough.
did we
It's
know.
really, really tough.
I'll tell you this. As a middle class, blue-eyed, white-skinned, 6.5 foot tall male that knows how to fight, I don't feel helpless very often. And the sense of helplessness that I felt when the ordering council dropped, and not trying to be like whiny about it, but it's true.
Yeah.
We don't experience a lot of that in this country, and it was the first time in my life for me, again, as a middle class white guy, that I felt like my government was targeting me, and it made me try to put into perspective things that go on in other parts of the world. And really, my problems are really still very insignificant compared to some other parts of the world. But it made me consider maybe a more worldly perspective than I had ever considered before, and still no less, as you said, isolating, and very helpless. And it took a little bit of time to work through it. There's no question about that.
And I think even now, like, I still feel helpless, to be honest. Like, my favorite response when people are like, hey, Dan, what can we do to stop this? It's like, nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like these amendments, there's nothing we can do. Like, write the letters for sure. What we can do is write letters and phone them so that you put the pressure on them.
Yeah, you don't stop trying.
Exactly. But you have to recognize, like, we aren't in control of this anymore. Like, this government has taken on its own thing and just own that. But I do think that, like, one thing that's been helpful for me is to focus instead on what we can control. Like, if you stop thinking, well, how can we stop the government? Then you start thinking, well, I actually can't make the government stop. So you do what you do there and you need to. Then you look at the other stuff and you go like, well, and that's where I came up with the idea of the gun range ban, like just not allowing ranges to rent to federal people. Because like that is
I
something
thought
we
that was
can
a
do.
great idea, by the way.
I think we should do it. Like straight up. I'm saying now I put
100%.
it out there as an idea, but now I'm going to say for sure, and I'm going to put some resources and supply behind it to
For those
to send
that
out
don't
stuff.
know, Daniel was putting forth the idea that in response, gun ranges across the entire country should just say government agents, not at this range because of what's going on.
Yeah,
Especially
if you
now.
see,
Like I didn't know how to feel about it before, like when the OIC came in, there was some talk about that, and a few ranges did that, banned police from participating in the ranges or whatever. I wasn't sure about that, but especially now, I'm like, yeah, fully behind that.
I think it should be rolled out, and I've even started to think maybe it should be staged. Because like the one thing is on a very grassroots level from a strategy, we're going to have to contact all these gun clubs, right?
Yeah.
And tell the boards like, hey, here's a policy that you should consider putting forward. We're looking to have it put forward nationally. Well, you got to start somewhere. And where should we start? Well, maybe we should start with the liberal ridings. Because maybe only the police
Absolutely.
officers in those ridings are the ones that should not learn how to shoot. Because the one thing is legitimately like, you will live in a more dangerous community if your local police officers cannot qualify on their handguns or train on their handguns. So we have to accept that like we are going to be making the world a little bit more dangerous. The only ethical thing that I'd say to that is it's only a sneak peek as to how dangerous it will be after the gun ban happens, because these ranges will then just close, and then
That's right.
Once they're closed, you can't use them.
And now
It's
what?
inevitable anyways. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we're just cutting straight to the chase, saying no, we're not going to let you guys do this, and better than that, we're going to show you the downside.
Right.
So I think
I think it's a
starting
great
off-
idea.
I think I'm going to start looking at Marco Mendocino's riding, and every gun range that starts there, just epicenter out.
Yeah, that's not a
exactly.
bad idea at all.
Like, honestly,
not,
like me
not
now.
as a vindictive thing, but as a
No.
like this is a reap what you sow moment.
Because I said, like, that was my reply to Alistair McGregor, too. Is like when he's saying that this is plenty of time to work through all these amendments, 20 minutes per amendment. And, like, I'm thinking this whole time, like, this will kill all the gun ranges, and how are they going to train on these guns and all these other things? Like, they've never even discussed this. It's never even come up in SecU. Like, how are you going to train everyone? Like, 90% of the infrastructure they use is not government operated. So, like, you're fucked. Like, and they can't. I've heard some pushback. Oh, the CFO will pull your membership. No, they can't. Like, that is very strictly illegal. That is
Yes.
absolutely. You are a private club. You own that land. You have a license to run a gun range there. The government can't just take your fucking license away because they don't
Because they
like
don't
you.
like you. Yeah.
you will. There are legal ramifications of that.
Well, and
makes
to be
them-
clear, there are some gun ranges across this country that already publicly advertise that they
Yeah.
do not allow law enforcement or other government agents as members. So,
And
it's not even theoretical. Some ranges already put that into practice.
And I don't think there are some ranges for whom it would be a significant hit, like Abbotsford. Down.
Sure.
I used to shoot
Yeah.
Abbotsford all the
Sure.
time, and they have a ton of
Yes.
rentals with corrections and
Mine
border.
does as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but your range will close. Like, that's the argument for the boards that are saying, well, we'll lose some money this year. You'll lose your range in 5 years if you don't.
Exactly.
That's just the reality. Like,
Yeah.
like when the handguns are gone and the AR-15s are gone, who's left to be a range member? Realistically, like,
Well, you get the hunters that come out, in October to
year?
sight in their rifles.
yeah, but newsflash, they also know where the gravel pits are because they go
Yeah.
hunting in the backwoods. Like, so the average hunter, if you that 90% gun guy who drags out his Remington every September, if he goes to his gun club and it's closed, he'll just go, oh shit. Okay, I'll go up the dirt road.
Yeah,
like
I'll
that's
just-
it.
I'll just
He
go
doesn't-
find some
exactly
ground
right.
because
Yeah.
the gun
Yep.
club for him was never anything more than a gravel pit.
Yep.
He's not there for the community. He's not there for Maple Seed. He's just a hunter, and that's okay. That's totally fine. But, if the clubs start to get involved, I also think this is how we have to get more politically involved too. Like, I'm using a ton of AI now for like letter writing campaigns and stuff. It's just so
Yeah.
easy. And that's going to leverage so well in the next campaign. But if we start doing this with this gun range thing now, like, think about the infrastructure that we're going to be building and that community and that network that we'll be building before the next election. If you want to have a giant database of emails of gun owners and know where they live so that you can use them in the next election, that's really useful information. And that's where, to be quite honest, if we want to take guns off the political table, we just have to weaponize them ourselves and say that, like, it doesn't matter who votes for or against us, we'll nuke you, period. If it's the conservatives, we'll nuke you too. Like, you got to kind of become the elephant in the room, right? But we'll get there.
Well, do you think that's a good place for us to end it?
I wouldn't mind. I got to get upstairs. I think it's a little bit late for my kid's bedtime, but I'm fairly certain he's still awake up there.
I'm sure they're loving it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
So I'm gonna get up
what-
there and
Tell everybody how they can find Calibre Magazine, how they can get subscriptions, how they can find you on the web. Plug it.
plug it. We're at calibremag.ca. That's spelled Calibre.
Because this is Canada.
Indeed, the Americans pronounce it Calibre, and I'm not making that up.
That's
At
awesome.
SHOT Show,
They
literally
turn
when
it
I get
Spanish.
my badge, I go to SHOT Show to get my media badge, and the lady's like, she takes my driver's license, and okay, Daniel Fritter, Calibre, and I was like, sure,
Yep.
I like that. We'll roll.
Caliente.
If you need to get a hold of me later on, I'm staying at the Sheraton Cavalier.
Oh man. So yeah, calibremag.ca. We're on Instagram at calibremag. We're on Twitter at calibremag. Subscribe. You can go to the magazine website. There's a thing that says subscribe or a web store. The web store is going to be populated soon with some more stuff. We've not really done the swag or stickers, but I ordered some stickers from that cover that we did, the Carey Price cover,
Oh, yeah.
a long
Yep.
time ago.
Yeah.
That was our thumbnail for this episode, by the way. I just pieced
Yeah.
it together. Yeah.
Turns out someone involved in that picture, as in someone depicted, was maybe not the hugest fan of it, unfortunately.
Oh, Boo Earns.
It kind of sucked. I was like so stoked because everyone loved it. Like,
Yeah.
I've put out a few covers that I've been really proud of because I take the photography quite seriously. And then that one, I was like, this is a good cover. I was really happy with it. And then the response was like, this is better than I thought. And then I get this one email and I was like, this is going to be awesome. Oh, this is not awesome at all.
And he was like, you motherfucker.
Well, no, he wasn't like that. I'll say he was very nice, very kind. It was just kind of a question of like, why didn't you ask me first? And it was totally fair. But it was one of those like, I just kind of didn't have time. Like, and to be honest,
and you would have said no.
I don't know how. Like, I did think, how do you ask Carey Price's permission to represent him on the cover of a magazine?
Yeah.
How? What do you email the Canadians? I don't know. Like, I don't really watch hockey, first of all, so I don't know where he is.
I wouldn't know how either.
And I just kind of thought it's a cartoon. It's not even him. It's a dude in his jersey, which I thought was pretty clear because the meme face stayed the same. But yeah, so that was a bit of a disappointment. Also, too, the stickers already got lost in the mail, so the whole thing just fell apart in like rapid order. Yeah, so
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but do you think Carey Price might have something to do with that? Do you think he has pull at Canada Post?
Maybe he's the Illuminati for real. We've had it all wrong all along.
So when they do finally get here, and you overcome Carey Price's ban on that thing, like people better snap those up quick because they're going to be collector's items.
Because we're going to get one set of them, and we're probably not going to order anymore. We'll just have the one sticker. And we're going to do that with most of our stuff. We're going to do some more designs. I have a Marco Mendichinocchio cartoon that I'm working on now.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, because I think that'll be a
You should just become a cartoonist now.
The problem is I have all these ideas, but it's really hard to find the graphic designers. Thankfully, the guy that did the Carey Price one's awesome. He does a ton of graphic design around guns and stuff. He actually works he's a Canadian, but he works for Headstamp Publishing, which is Forgotten Weapons publishing company, who publish our photography. If you have their book on the British bullpup rifles, there's some Calibre pictures in there, believe it or not. Super cool.
Hey, there you go.
They sent me a copy of it. It's really skookum. It's like leather-bound book quality.
I'm sorry, did you just say it's really skookum?
Yeah, of course I did.
That was awesome.
Skook is frig, buddy.
That was awesome. Okay. All right. So that's
we'll leave on that.
That's perfect. All right, guys, if you're still watching and you haven't hit thumbs up or heart or whatever else, make sure you do that. Feed the algorithm, share everything around, because it doesn't do it on its own. For some reason, our algorithm is broken. I don't know why. You can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/BS Podcast. Find us on our website, bspodcast.ca. All of our episodes are on there. All of our YouTube content is on there. Everything is on there. If you want to talk to us, I don't know why you would, but if you want to, send us an email at info@bspodcast.ca. And you know what? A massive thank you to all of our sponsors and all of our listeners. Without you guys collectively, we would just be two morons on the internet, probably talking to nobody because Daniel wouldn't even agree to come on with us. And we're talking about Shane and Steve, Miles, Carey and Cappy, Duncan and Rob, Phil Odell, Doug and Niza, Vanya and Carly, Oscar, and of course, Mr. J.R. Cox. And Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. This was a really good conversation. And, we're looking forward to seeing your next cover for Calibre Magazine.
Thanks for having me on. I will not put any more NHL players on the cover of Calibre without asking their permission.
Maybe it's time for a CFL player or something.
Yeah, I feel like they would just be happy. I mean, they have part-time jobs, right? Like,
that's right. Yeah.
So, the fame might be a little bit cool for him, but it's always a pleasure having you guys or being on the podcast with you guys, and nice to catch up because obviously I hadn't seen you since January there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hopefully we'll get, like that guy says there, Mike. We'll get more of that 10% or 90% to the 10% and start switching things around. And I'll do more videos and we'll work on that gun range ban thing. Because I think I'm actually, like I said, that might be the thing.
You're onto something.
That might be my advocacy thing that I kind of spearhead this year. So
I like it.
Yeah,
beautiful.
sure.
All right. Don't disappear after we go off. We're going to talk to you off air for a second here. So
sounds good.
All right. See everybody next week. Take it easy.
This right here has the ability with a 30 caliber clip to disperse with 30 bullets within half a second.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
You're listening to your weekly dose of BS, ballistically speaking. The Ballistically Speaking Podcast.